weird processing methods. What's all the hype about? Well, I am going to discuss this very matter in this presentation. I'm going to be using a coffee that I have recently roasted from Nicaragua to describe natural anaerobic processing methods and what the flavor profiles are, how I approach the roast through a live cropster profile, and I'm going to discuss the impacts of processing on the cup profile. If you're interested in the coffee industry, you must be, because you're watching me talk about coffee related things on the internet. You may be aware that of recent years, interesting processing methods have become a hot topic of discussion, and roasters like myself are presenting coffees that have gone through what we would describe as more interesting methods of getting those little seeds out of the fruit, such as natural anaerobic or co-fermentations. Now, I am not a person that tends to roast these coffees or purchase them or even enjoy drinking them. And this video will discuss whether I actually enjoy natural anaerobic coffees at all. So what is a natural anaerobic? Well, in this case, the farm in Nicaragua have picked ripe cherries, they have floated the cherries in water and then selected the ripe ones to put into a container of which they filled and removed the oxygen. The cherries would have been sat in this container for up to 36 hours doing anaerobic fermentation. Before then, the cherries were taken out and dried naturally. The impact of that oxygenless fermentation should have a profound impact on the cup, and I will cup this coffee a little later on to discuss the flavor profiles that are manifesting within the actual cup profile. I have never roasted a natural anaerobic before, so how did I actually approach roasting? What did I go through? Well, I treated this very similarly to any natural processed coffee. I wanted to maximize the fruit characteristics within the cup. So for me, I chose a shorter development time, and my end weight I wanted to be somewhere lower than I would do for other coffees. So in this instance, my target was an 11% weight loss. I want to reach a very light or extremely light roast color towards the end. The end temperatures need to be somewhat lower than I would usually approach if I was roasting a washed coffee, because a lower end temperature helps promote some of those fruit characteristics within the cup. And I also want a quicker roast than a slower one. Now, the caveat here is this being a hybrid cultivar means that I have no reference point. I've not only not ever roasted an anaerobic natural, but I've also never roasted this hybrid cultivar either. So I had no waypoints whatsoever. So because of this, a 9-minute roast was my target. And through the roast profile that I'll discuss next, I was trying to mitigate overrunning or undershooting that particular time. So let's discuss the profile now. On the screen, you'll see the end profile, the roast that I executed for this presentation. The drop-in temperature was 240 degrees Celsius on the return. The end roast time was 9 minutes and 1 second. The development time for this was 1 minute and 20 seconds. Develop time percentage ratio, 14.8%. I reached my target 11% weight loss, which I was pretty happy about, and the end color was 111.6 on my Light Tells color meter. I executed this roast batch using the pyramid heat approach, and that was so that this 12 kilo green load had enough momentum through the roast that I would reach the 9-minute end time, but was sensitive enough early on in the roast such that I could build tension within the beans and be able to hit the waypoints and markers that I wished for, which importantly was towards the end of the roast. Most natural processed coffees have a tendency to overshoot themselves once you get into first crack. They have less water, less moisture generally, and therefore the temperatures can wish to run away. So keeping that under control through a very keen tapering away of energy as I lead into first crack was pretty important with this coffee. I'll now present to you the live roast in 2 times or 4 times speed so we can get through some of the decisions that I was making as the roast was actually progressing. So here's the roast in 2 times speed. I may skip forward through a few things so as you're not spending 4.5 minutes watching this. Anyway, the entry point was 240 degrees Celsius. It was a 12 kilo load, and I allowed the lowering to introduce 60% gas at a 20 or 25 second, a 20 or 25 second soak period. I wanted to try and meet 160 degrees Celsius at 4.5 minutes. So at this point, I'm now beginning to taper up the energy. So after 1 minute, I was then increasing the gas by 5 or so percent. I'm increasing the gas again at 1.5 minutes, and I'm going to continue this taper upwards so that I'm building energy into the Maillard phase, which I mark at around 160 degrees Celsius. I am consistently looking at the graphs. You can see my cursor moving around, trying to map out where the 160 is going to be in temperature and time so that I know if I'm falling behind that or I'm being in front of that particular point. At 3.5 minutes, I've now got to my peak energy at 95% of the gas, and this will hopefully allow me to get through to the Maillard 160 at around 4.5 minutes, which is coming up shortly. So I marked Maillard 160 degrees Celsius at 4 minutes and 21. Now, I'm at this point trying to figure out at what point am I going to get to first crack, and how do I bring this into a soft close, being mindful that I expect the temperatures to race away once we reach first crack, and it could even get to that point before first crack. So at 6 minutes, I begin to reduce the energy going into the coffee bean. So that was 183.7 degrees Celsius on the bean curve. So I'm now going to reduce the energy by 5% gas, pretty much around 5 degrees Celsius per rise. As I get into first crack, I'm 65% of gas. I marked first crack at 201.6 degrees Celsius, and now it's about managing my way down to the end point. You see a little bit of a peak here. I'm mindful that I don't want that coffee to race away in temperature, so I continue that taper away. First crack has now been going on for a minute. I'm thinking about my end point. I'm thinking about my end temperature of 211, 212 degrees Celsius, and I drop the roast. Now I've addressed the technicalities of the roast, let's cup the output. Whilst the kettle boils, I'm going to assess the dry fragrance. And I mean, I'm sort of lost for words. There's a stunning fragrance to this. It is ripe. There's booziness. There is this, I want to say apple cider vinegar. Now, it wasn't me who brought that forward. It was Jules, who works in post-roast production. When we assessed the green aroma, because it was so interesting, it was her that came up with the apple cider vinegar thing. There's a lot of malic acid in coffees from Nicaragua, and there was also this acetic note as well, so like a vinegary note, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It smelt effervescent and vibrant, but wow, fragrance, just stonkingly fruit forward. So let's get some water on. The aroma is somewhat similar to the fragrance. Now, top notes have been brought in with the application of water, and now the smells are just sticky. And there's a huge amount of prevailing sweetness on the nose. Now, that is a thing. You can smell things that are sweet, and ripe fruits are still ever present in the aroma. You know, wow. For clarity, all 3 of these cups are from the same sample. I'm using 3 cups here to assist me in triangulation. I will understand whether the actual roasted product presents a clean cup profile, because some natural coffees can be a little bit funky, and I want to understand whether this lot from Oconor here is a really good one, or one that is interspersed with weird and wacky flavors. So 3 cups it is from the same batch. I can't stress to you enough how profoundly fruit forward and interesting the aroma is of these 3 cups. I have never been more excited to cup a batch of coffee before ever. Why? Because I've roasted it, I've done it on the Loring, and this is the first, and it's the first of this particular cultivar. Everything about this is going to be super exciting. So this coffee is, as I've been describing on the aroma and the dry fragrance, incredibly fruit forward. There is this sticky date, dried fruit characteristic in syrup. It is syrupy. The texture of it is quite profoundly syrupy. But also, there's a lovely ripe acidity to it as well, which is really quite lovely because you get the sparkle, you get that sort of the lovely part of acidity on your palate, but it's also then balanced by a syrupiness on your palate as well. Flavors, I'm picking up sticky date. I'm getting barbecued pineapple, so tropical fruits. I'm getting a really lovely ripe strawberry as well. And the strawberry is more about the acidity as much as it is the fruit. Specifically in this cup here, there is a little difference across the 3 cups. I kind of expected that there would be, but all of them present in such a wonderfully fruit forward way. Now, they are very process driven. These do not taste at all like a standard natural processed coffee, not from this region, not from this country, not from any country. There is obviously very much of a process driven cup profile. And do I enjoy it? Yeah, I actually do. And I say that because I am an old-fashioned traditional coffee roaster. I love coffees that are washed. I love the clarity. I love the preciseness of washed coffees. And I sometimes don't mind natural coffees if there is a bit of fruit, but they're not my daily drivers. This coffee here, I would honestly struggle to drink every single day because of its complexity. There's so much fruit in it. There's so much of a positive challenge in its flavor delivery that it's almost an onslaught of interestingness coming at me. And sometimes I want to be a touch dull. There is a little bit of me that's actually stood here pondering live recording about how I'm going to present this coffee to people, how I'm going to describe it to people when I'm stood in front of them, encouraging them to purchase a bag, I'm almost a little wordless, speechless. Let's clear down and close out. So what is all the hype about these co-ferments, interesting fermentation processes? Why are people doing it? What's the value? Well, I think let's start with the coffee consumer. The value there is something that is so stonkingly different that if you are pursuant of just wacky flavors and you want to test your palate, coffees such as this absolutely suit that. They are very challenging, positively so. They really make you think about coffee in a totally different way. Coffee doesn't have to be strong, dark, and bitter. It can be, doesn't have to be. It can be fruity and fermenty and just positively wacky. Coffees such as this also represent an additional value capture for the growers. Why? Because, well, in this example, the cultivar, a hybridized cultivar, has been grown such to avoid disease and have a higher yield, which, putting those two things together, tends not to present coffees with an innate deliciousness. So by doing these additional fermentation processes, you can, using fermentation, add value and interestingness into a cup that was somewhat less interesting to start with. So we are value adding, we are adding additional capture of revenue for the growers whilst not detracting from the value of the cup for the consumer, because everybody involved in the coffee supply chain is important. We all need to increase value for ourselves, for our families, and ultimately the end consumer, the person who sat there drinking the cup of coffee. So on that basis, I totally get it. I totally understand it. I'm just left a little challenged with the flavour presentation because it's so left field. It's so far removed from what I would drink as my daily coffees. Washed coffees from Guatemala, washed coffees from Ethiopia. I love washed coffees. So this is just weird in a positive way. I'd be interested to know, through the release of this coffee, Oconor, from Nicaragua, whether it will actually also be a commercial success. It's all very well me bringing in coffees such as this to form presentations on the internet and test myself on the roaster, but I've got to sell this stuff as well. Is this going to be divergent from what my customer profile enjoy? Is this going to be something that presents too much of a challenge, not just on the flavor profiling, but possibly the price points as well? Because this is a more expensive coffee. It has gone through additional processing, which incurs additional cost. So the value capture there for my customers has to be, well, even greater. But with the challenge of the flavors, I mean, you know, you've got to like this stuff to want to repeat purchase it in the first place. So I'm left in a little bit of a quandary state. I have enjoyed roasting it. I hope that the presentation of how I roasted it was insightful, gives you a breadcrumb trail as to how you may approach roasting a natural anaerobic, or any coffee to be fair. Then for my business, I hope that this presentation hasn't put you off wanting to buy a bag. Moreover, I hope that you do come and buy a bag of this coffee, because it would really help support, well, these sorts of mini projects going forward. It would allow me to bring interesting stuff to the market, physically and metaphorically, and it would, well, just give me something interesting to roast on the Loring as well. So is the hype about processing methods worth it? Yes, yes they are. Enjoy your week ahead.